Well, you know,
and not.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
C&C Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, C&C provides patient-centered care for your entire family. C&C Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we do what we do. We cover all the home teams, Saints, LSU, Tulane, Pelicans. We'll talk about it all and, of course, break it down for us. One best we have. Doug Mouton, Sports Director at Channel 4 WLAE-TV Sports. Doug, how are you, bud?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's just one. Look, we're at that time where every kind of thing.
It's a beautiful time, isn't it? Yeah.
Baseball starting soon.
Yeah.
Right, Major League.
Yeah, I went to spring training last week in Arizona.
Tell us about that.
Oh, it's awesome. Look, me and my son do it. It has nothing to do with work. Mm-hmm. It's just because I love baseball. Yes. It's a pure pleasure trip. I had some friends come along. Mm-hmm. We had 6 of us in an Airbnb in Arizona. Went to 4 games in 4 days at 4 different parks. Right. Saw 8 teams. And it's the most beautiful trip of all time. Yeah. It's great. Came back, I haven't stopped smiling since I got back.
And look, again, college baseball.
College baseball, and the NFL's relevant right now.
Right. And of course, college basketball next week is March Madness.
Oh yeah, it's all. And the Pelicans are hitting the home stretch.
Right, exactly. I mean, I can tell you, it's a great time of year.
It's a great time of year.
It really is a great time of year. Before we get started, tell us about all the great programming over at Channel 4, and of course, how folks can follow you on social media.
I'm on Twitter, all over the place. Twitter is sort of the sports social media, at DMouton WWL. Look, 4th Down on 4 is our signature show every Sunday night at 10:35 or whenever we get on after the late news. And right now, we're sort of gearing up for the LSU women in the NCAA tournament. That's sort of the next pressing event. We're waiting to see how the brackets come out Sunday. We're going to do an LSU women's basketball special next week. I don't know what day it's going to be yet because I don't know. It'll be the day before LSU plays, whatever day that is. We're not sure yet. But LSU will be at home, not next week, I'm sorry, the week after that.
Right, okay.
We expect LSU to get through the first 2 rounds because it'll be at home. This would be for the Sweet 16.
Right.
But so much going on right now. It's a great time of year. So exciting. Look, I'm checking my phone every 2 minutes to see what's happening in free agency.
Sure.
Just a lot brewing.
It is. Well, let's start with the Saints. They are cap compliant, which is something obviously it happens. They are cap compliant finally. They did sign Willie Gay, which I think is an excellent signing and maybe a little under the radar.
Well, I'll tell you what I like about it too. No, I agree with you 100%. I'll tell you what I like about it. Okay, look. Chiefs have been the best team in the NFL over the last 5-6 years, right? No, I mean, no question. You can't argue that, right? So what happens when you have a team like that is you can't pay everybody.
Right.
There's a salary cap. And Willie Gay is the perfect salary cap casualty that the Chiefs would have loved to have kept.
Right.
In snap counts on their defense,
Right.
he was 7th most snap counts. If you watch the Chiefs last year, now granted, Patrick Mahomes carried him in the playoffs.
Sure.
All year, their offense was not good.
That's right.
The Chiefs' defense carried him. He played more snaps than any linebacker on that defense. Like I said, 7th in snaps on that defense. A huge part of it was an extremely good Chiefs defense. They just can't pay everybody.
Right.
He was a second-round pick out of Mississippi State, played great ball for them, incredibly athletic. They just didn't have the money for him. And that's what happens to the great teams, and I think it's a smart use of free agency to look for the values, pilfer from the teams that can't afford to pay everybody on their team. I think it's a great signing for the Saints. Well, and I'm not saying he's the best player in free agency.
No.
I'm just saying it's a great signing because you're upgrading the position. I think he is clearly an upgrade over Zach Bond, a guy who has proven it and done it, used a ton in coverage. He's been a good coverage linebacker with the Saints. He might get a chance to rush the passer. We'll see. And he did have a few sacks in his time there. Anyway, I think it's a good signing. I think it's an upgrade at that position. I don't like losing Malcolm Roach. I think that one hurts.
I agree.
But I think signing Willie Gay was an excellent start to free agency, and that's the way the Saints are going to attack free agency. They're going to poke around and look for the values.
Where do you think he plays? Is he weak side? Is he middle?
I think it plays out. I mean, look, I think you try to figure out. The Saints played a ton of 2 linebackers the last few years. I think he's athletic enough where I think now you could see them playing more 3 linebackers. And I think, look, Pete Werner, Demario Davis, and Willie Gay make a great threesome.
That's a lot of speed on his field.
I don't know exactly how they mix. I just have. Look, Dennis Allen's done a great job as a defensive coordinator. You may not like him as a head coach, but running that defense, I'm pretty confident the best guys are going to be on the field, and I'm pretty sure they figure out a way to get all 3 of those guys on the field because now they're athletic enough where they can do multiple things that maybe they couldn't do before.
I would agree. You mentioned Malcolm Roach. I would agree with you. Again, that's 2 years, $8 million going to Denver. That opens up another spot now where you got to look.
And
at
Sean Payton knows his upside.
Absolutely. And you knew he was going to go after him. They released obviously Marcus May and Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas is going to be a post-June 1st cut. Andres Pete yesterday, they couldn't get a deal done with him. They $13 million in dead money there. When you look at where they go next, where do you think they go next?
Well, I do think they're going to be poking around for value, so it might be at a position that isn't their primary target. You know, like I don't think linebacker was their primary target. I think they saw value, they saw an upgrade, and they said, we can afford this, let's do it. I don't. Once Zach Bond was leaving, yes, you needed somebody there, but it's not like that was the biggest need on your roster. Look, I think the wide receiver room still needs upgrade, and no question they have to figure out tackle. It's a real question, though, that you're going to play Ramczyk on the right side. Now, his knee isn't going to get better. The Saints are confident that he'll be okay. You're sort of kicking the can right now with Ramczyk because he's on borrowed time.
Well, they renegotiated the deal, restructured it, and took a pay cut.
He did.
And more of an incentive-laden deal now, right?
Correct, but he gets more money right now, which is never a bad thing when you're talking about money in the millions. What you do at left tackle is the biggest question. You still have Trevor Penning, who's a first-round draft pick. They say they have some level of confidence in him. If you watch practice, Trevor Penning, like, you see why he's a first-round pick. He is uniquely athletic for a guy his size. He has all of the physical tools to be a really good left tackle. So if they don't go get a left tackle and they're saying Trevor Penning's our guy, now at this point you don't have an Andres Pete backup plan. It is possible they don't go get a left tackle and say, we got to make our first-round pick be that guy. I still think they are going to get a left tackle. The problem is left tackles are expensive as heck, and I don't know where they're going to find that kind of money. It's also very possible that they fill whatever needs they can poking around and they draft a left tackle. You know, with the 14th pick in the draft, it seems like there are going to be some pretty good options. It looks like the way this draft falls that they're going to have some tackle options, so maybe they're waiting for the draft. Tackle is an incredibly intriguing position because, yes, all of us who watch the team know that that's where they're weak. But I'm not 100% sure that the Saints believe that.
Right.
So whether they think we're going to go with Penning or they think we need to use a first-round draft pick on that, I don't know what they think. I think they need to go get a guy, but I don't know if they do. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. One thing about the new system is everyone learns the system together now, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And again, is he a Trent Williams type? Is he an athletic, big left tackle that you can throw out there?
He is.
That's the question.
He can do a lot.
Can he develop into that?
He is. He just the play on the field doesn't match the skill set. It just doesn't. But I'm telling you, the skill set is ridiculous. You watch him; he has got feet like you don't see in a big man. He might not know what to do with those feet. Somebody's got to teach him how to dance. But he is ridiculously athletic and crazy strong. If he picked up a pickup truck and threw it, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, he has the tools. Why those tools aren't translating, obviously.
Well, and a lot of it could be, again, mental. Clearly. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. The one thing that I give him an opportunity here is because everyone's going to be learning the system together.
No question. And I'll say this too. Look, his first 2 years were a bust.
Right.
A bust.
Absolutely.
You cannot call year 3 a bust.
Right.
Because he hasn't busted it yet.
Yes.
Like, Jim Derry and I got into this argument. Jim Derry said it's a bust as a draft pick. I said, well, you can't say that yet. He said, no, I think I can. I said, you might be right, but how can you predict the future? And maybe the light goes on. There are some guys who just don't have the physical skills.
Right.
The most obvious case in Saints history, I think, is Danny Werfel, who was a great college quarterback. He just couldn't make the throws, didn't have the arm strength, couldn't do the things that an NFL quarterback has to do. There are guys who just don't have the skill set, and that's why they don't succeed. It's not effort, it's not desire, it's not motivation, it's not coaching. They just don't. I can't play in the NFL, no matter how much I want to. With Trevor Penning, he has the skill set. Not only has the skill set, he has an elite skill set, and it hasn't translated. So left tackle is a huge question mark. And I think that's where you start. But like I said, I still think wide receiver is a big need. You got a bunch of little guys. I think you need some size.
Well, all right, let me ask this question because Hunter Renfrow was released yesterday from the Raiders. Obviously, again, there's a connection there with Carr. There was a lot of talk in the last year. They were trying to trade for him. You anticipate them going after him?
I think, like a lot of these guys, he would be an upgrade. I absolutely do, but I also think they're going to have a price point. And I think that's what you're going to see in all of this. I do think if they're going to overspend on anybody, it would be Chase Young. Because Chase Young is such a shiny toy.
I want to go there next.
But Renfrow, I do think the Saints are going to be in play. But I do think they're going to have a price point. And at this point, the Saints can be outbid by anybody who's motivated enough to outbid them. So if one of the lower tier teams decide this is the guy we want, the Saints are going to be out on pretty much anybody. So,
well, the good thing is this is such a strong wide receiver draft.
It is.
Okay.
It is. Although the guys I like are all first round. And if you do have to draft an offensive lineman, and we can come back to Brian Thomas is one of my guys in this draft, and I think he'd be a great pick at 14 for the Saints because I think that's about where he should go,
I agree with
given
that.
his size and athleticism. I mean, he is huge and he can fly,
and that's what you're looking for.
And he can catch the ball. Like, well, I'm not 100% sure how he's not higher in the draft.
So
but
you're thinking big physical receiver more than possession receiver?
Well, look, Brian Thomas would be my answer because he's all of it.
And
he can get downfield and he can run. And look at how San Francisco built this offense. Brandon Ayuk is not a little guy. Juwan Johnson is big, and Deebo Samuel is the toughest wide receiver in the NFL. They didn't build that San Francisco offense with little wide receivers. San Francisco's wide receivers block better than anybody else's in the NFL, and they're big and physical, even though they can also run. So if you're using San Francisco's model for the Saints team, look, I love Olave and I love Shaheed. I like what they have, but those are not guys that are going to be intimidating blockers downfield. Brian Thomas could be, and I'm not saying Brian Thomas is the only guy. There are a lot of guys, but I think the Saints need some size at wide receiver, and I think if you go with the San Francisco model, you see that.
And look, to your point, I think quarterback, there'll be a premium quarterback in this draft. Okay.
No question.
Wide receivers, they're going to go early. There are some offensive tackles that are going to go at the top of this draft as well. But again, there is a possibility at 14 that one of those receivers will fall to them.
No
one of those
question.
tackles will fall to them.
And there's wide receivers in rounds 2 and 3. And let me say this. Look, free agency is a weird thing. And there's one thing I remember from Sean Payton saying about price points. The Saints had a great need at defensive end. And I remember Sean Payton saying, with the great defensive ends, and this is about 8 years ago, with the great defensive ends, if you want one, you got to draft one, because they always get franchise tagged. They always re-up with their team because teams know how valuable those guys are.
Right.
That position now has become wide receiver. Wide receivers now are the premium position that is getting overpaid. T. Higgins got franchise tagged. He's not the best wide receiver on his own team.
$21 million.
He's not. He is not Jamar Chase. His success is directly linked to defenses rolling coverage to Jamar Chase and leaving him on the other side. T. Higgins is a terrific player. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but he is not Jamar Chase. He's not Jamar Chase by a long shot. And if you look at the way defenses play Cincinnati, you see that, because every defense overplays Jamar Chase at the expense of playing T. Higgins. And he is franchise tagged. That's how hard it is. Now, you can get third-tier receivers in free agency. You can get Hunter Renfro's, and I don't mean that to criticize Hunter Renfro, but he's not a 1 or a 2. He's a slot guy, and a pretty good slot guy. It's not like he's an elite slot guy, but he's a pretty good slot guy who would be an upgrade on this team. If you want a 1 or a 2, you might get lucky with a guy like Shaheed, but for the most part, you're going to have to get them in the draft, because in free agency, A, they're not out there this year, and B, if they were, they'd be getting crazy overpriced.
Chase Young, talk about him.
Well, look, I love Chase Young. Chase Young's got superlative upside that he hasn't quite reached yet. Terrific rookie year. Washington drafts him, second pick in the draft. He got Heisman Trophy votes at Ohio State. He was a great college player. Goes to Washington as a really good rookie year. Defensive Rookie of the Year, 7.5 sacks. For the most part, hurt in years 2 and 3. Comes back in year 4, which was this past year, 7.5 sacks again. Not great. Washington was a disaster. They traded him to San Francisco. He still had pretty good production. He's 24 years old with an enormous upside that has not been tapped into yet. He is the shiny toy. I don't know if the Saints could get outbid for him, and if they do, they do. But if they can get it on Chase Young, first of all, you sign him to be a rotational player in the defensive line. That was pretty good for the most part last year. But with the upside, like his floor, I would say, is a good rotational player. Get you 7.5 sacks, that's great. But he has the upside of a guy who can be an all-pro. That he hasn't gotten there, obviously, but he has all-pro upside. And there's only so many guys you could say that about. So I love the pursuit of Chase Young. It's the drafting a guy in the second round with first round ability. He's not coming at the biggest price tag that his ability should warrant. So if the Saints could get him, it would be great. I still think it's probably less than 50-50 just because the Saints don't have the kind of money to throw around. And he's good enough where I would not be surprised at all to see somebody throw him a contract that's too big for what his production looks like right now.
Right now, again, from what I understand, Carolina and New Orleans have an interest in Chase Young.
And the Tennessee Titans. And actually, the first team on him would have been the Texans. The Texans were on him hard. They decided to throw all their big money at Danielle Hunter, who also has huge upside, but has proven it on the field. Former LSU player who has blossomed in a humongous way, obviously, in Minnesota. So they decided instead to go with Danielle Hunter, the sure thing, than Chase Young. So they're out, and it's Tennessee, and he actually went to Carolina, and apparently, according to reports, left Carolina without a contract. And New Orleans is next, and it's Friday, and we'll see if the Saints can get a deal done. He might still want to go to Tennessee. We'll see how that works out. He'd be a great signing. Almost a position where you're not necessarily saying we got to have this, but you know what? If you got to upgrade like that, you got to take it.
Well, there's question marks. Peyton Turner, okay. I mean, Granderson obviously played well for you last year. You're asking so much of Cam Jordan at this advanced age, and he's got to be a guy that you can't count on getting down in, down out. So there is a need, in my opinion.
No, there is, and actually, what I like too about Chase Young is that it would take defensive end as a need off the table for the draft.
That's right,
and I love that. No, you're right. I think it's a position. look, you still have Isaiah Foskey there, who you hope can develop. You still have Teno Passanio, who had he's been a solid rotational player. So you have guys you can plug there. I would hate to see them spend another first-round draft pick on a defensive end. I'd love for them to be able to get Chase Young, put that position to bed, and let's move on to the offensive side in the draft, because the offense has to get better.
Let's talk the backup quarterback here. Jake Hayner's on the roster. Jameis Winston leaves New Orleans, goes to Cleveland to back up Watson there. Do you think that Hayner gets an opportunity to be the backup, or did they go get a veteran?
Well, they signed Nathan Peterson today, who's been an backup veteran, has some experience in the system. So he's possible as a backup. Some sports reporters came away more impressed with Jake Hayner than I did at training camp. I thought he was okay. He is tiny. I mean, he is tiny physically. And I know everybody brings up Drew Brees.
Smaller than Brees?
He looks smaller than Brees. I don't know if he is. I'm just telling you what my eyeballs tell me. Here's the thing. I hate Drew Brees comparisons. Drew Brees was such a unique animal. As one of those guys. Don't say Drew Brees did it at 5'10" or whatever he was. This guy can too. Okay, don't hand me that, because 99.9% of the guys at his size don't make it.
True.
And there's a reason why NFL teams like 6'3" quarterbacks and bigger, because you have a better chance for success than the little guys. Hayner didn't do a lot for me. Maybe he does. Look, honestly, with most teams, if you play and you back up quarterback, you're in trouble anyway. I don't think. I still think Hayner's on the team. I don't know if Peterson's the two. I don't know if they try to get somebody else. Obviously, you're riding Derek Carr for now, and let's see what happens.
Let's talk about Marshawn Lattimore. Carlton Davis ends up going to Detroit. Give up a third-round pick, but they gave back 2 6th-round picks.
Yeah, I know, right. You're not getting
24, 25 6th-round picks. He's a guy that missed 16 games over the last 3 years. Lattimore's missed 14 games over the last 2 years. Obviously, I think Lattimore's a better player than Carlton Davis when both guys are healthy. When you look at the market for Lattimore, if they will trade him after June 1st, if that's what their thought process is here, what do you think? What do you think they can get for him? And is David set the market a little bit here?
I hate to say yes. I think so. I think you're looking at like a third round kind of thing.
And then is it worth it to
No,
trade him?
I don't think so. Look, there's talk about Isaac Yiadom leaving in free. He had a terrific season.
He did.
As a guy they picked up off the scrap heap.
Can you afford him is the question.
No, If you let Yiadom go, are you going to play? Then you're thinner than you want to be at cornerback. Look, I would love them to just ride that pony with Lattimore and hope he can stay healthy. He's been a terrific player. Dennis Allen and he seem to have a really good relationship. I think he's staying, if I had to guess.
That's $45 million in dead money that you're going to have to eat, over 2 years, and it's just...
There's so many reasons not to
do it.
I don't think you're going to get a good enough deal, and Lattimore's a good player. And if you do get him, look, I love the idea of betting on upside, and he's as good as any cornerback in the NFL if you can get him for 16 games.
They were said to have an interest in Avonte Maddox, who was more of a slot corner. And a lot of people thought, well, that means Taylor's going to move to the outside, and they're going to move off of Lattimore.
People always want to connect dots.
To me. Again, but you don't give away top players.
I think that's beautifully said. You don't give away top players. And look, the Saints probably know, the other way you could read that is the Saints probably know that Yiadom's going. You know in the course of a season, 3 cornerbacks is not enough. So this is your 4th guy. That's what you do. You're building depth on a roster.
I agree. Falcons, Bucks, Panthers. How much better did they get over the last few days?
Well, look, Kirk Cousins is an interesting, and I love the divergence of opinion.
But there is, right?
Yeah, there so is. There's some people who say, look, Kirk Cousins has been a really good quarterback. The rest of the team around him hasn't been Super Bowl good. That's why he hasn't been there. So some people are saying Atlanta was a mediocre NFL team, right? Roughly a 500 team with horrible quarterbacking. So how much better can they be with at worst, pretty good quarterback, right? So the Falcons immediately become a contender in the division, or a much more serious contender in the division. And so there are some people who believe Kirk Cousins is a pretty good player that say this is a big deal for Atlanta. And then there's also a ton of people saying this is a guy whose only superstar ability is his ability to cash in.
Right.
You talk about a guy who knows how to monetize.
Guaranteed contract.
Oh my God! He's in Minnesota. He signed an $88 million deal and a $66 million deal, and he was franchise tagged 2 different times.
Fully guaranteed.
This is a guy who knows how to make his money like few athletes anywhere. I mean, LeBron James makes money. He's also the greatest player of his generation. Nobody's calling Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is a 0-time all-pro quarterback, and he monetizes like the greatest of all time. Anyway, so there's some people saying this makes Atlanta much better, and they're a Super Bowl contender, and some people saying, well, you just signed a quarterback who's going to be 36 when the season starts, coming off an ACL, an Achilles injury, which is the worst injury in football. Now, on the backside of that, look, he's the one guy that Achilles kills your speed, and he's the one guy. He's the one guy that speed is not really his thing anyway.
And he's been a Saints killer.
Yes. How much that will affect him. Look, I remember doing a story on Achilles. My son has an orthopedic doctor, Dr. Jason Rowling. I did a story with him when DeMarcus Cousins ripped up his Achilles, and he said to me in a story that I aired, DeMarcus Cousins will never be the same player again. He is through being an elite player in the NBA. And my doctor was 100% correct. But that's different. That's a 7-footer who needed every ounce of speed he had and now lost some. And Kirk Cousins is not that guy. No. So how much the Achilles ruins him, I'm not sure. I think it makes Atlanta super intriguing. I think Carolina's still Carolina. I don't have any faith in that owner. We'll see what they do, but as long as David Tepper owns that team, I'm never going to think they're going to win more than 4 games until they show me they're going to win more than 4 games. And Tampa, look, they liked what they saw in Baker Mayfield. They made a huge investment. I thought that was super interesting. It's a 3-team race now in the division. Atlanta's legit because the quarterbacking, no matter what you think of Kirk Cousins, he's an upgrade. No matter whether you think he's mediocre or pretty good.
Better than what they had.
No, if you tell me he's worse than what they had, you're just wrong.
You're not watching.
You're just you haven't watched any football.
Yeah, there's no doubt. All right, last question on the Saints. With Kubiak coming in, what do you think this offense looks like? Is it a morph of again Shanahan and his dad's offense, or is it straight Shanahan? What do you think it looks like?
Well, A, I love that question. And B, I love that question because we don't know. And C, here's the funny thing. With Sean Payton, we had gotten so used to him. And smart Saints fans could always see Sean Payton's, and even Dennis Allen is playing such Sean Payton ball. This past draft, I said on TV the Saints can take Brian Brzee in round 1, and they did. In round 2, I said, the day of that draft, I said the Saints would take B.J. Ojulari of LSU. I had the position and the type of player correct. Like, they went for a smaller defensive end. They just went, and I'm not saying I'm particularly smart, because a lot of people predicted that. What I'm saying is this team has been easy to read because we know what they like and we know what they do. You know what I mean? And so Sheldon Rankins, everyone predicted that draft pick. There's been times we had the wrong guy, but the right position and the right look of that guy. You know what I mean? And so the Saints have been easy to predict, and for the first time in about 10 years, we don't know. I'm not really sure what he's looking for. First guy he signed is a fullback. You know, and Juszczyk got a ton of use in the San Francisco offense. I don't know how much of the morph we're going to see of what he did in Minnesota, what he learned with the 49ers, and what his dad did. His dad was incredibly innovative as an offensive coach. We don't know what combination of that we're going to see. We don't know what it's going to look like, and I love that. I love the unknown. So I'm not sure, and anybody who tells you they know what it's going to look like, they don't know either. I do know in all of those offenses, they love running the ball and building creative running games.
Is that good for Kamara?
It could be. I mean, look, Kamara can dance in a real way.
I mean, everybody's looking at McCaffrey and seeing again how his career really took off again once he went to San Francisco. A lot of people think that is going to be rejuvenating Kamara's career.
It's definitely possible.
And I'm one of those guys.
Well, I will also say this: what McCaffrey's secret. Look, it's all about how teams play.
Yes.
Right? When McCaffrey was in Carolina, every team overplayed McCaffrey. Right? In San Francisco, you can overplay McCaffrey, but only maybe by like this much, because Deebo Samuel will eat your lunch.
Right.
It's not about the one weapon. It's about the weapons around
Agreed.
them. T. Higgins is the guy he is because of Jamar Chase.
Right.
The Saints offenses that Sean Payton built, especially those first few years, were 100% built around Reggie Bush and defenses overplaying Reggie Bush,
right.
and Marcus Colston goes nuts. Marcus Colston was a great player, but if Marcus Colston had been in this past year's Saints offense, he would not have had a particularly great year. Marcus Colston thrived because he always got the least coverage you can give to a wide receiver.
Right.
It's all about how teams, and so McCaffrey's success, yes, the 49er offense finds creative ways to use him, but also the 49er offense is giving you weapons across the field, and they use the field horizontally like few teams. They use every inch from side to side.
Yes.
You got to play it all. So McCaffrey has the advantage of, look, San Francisco running backs put up big numbers the year before McCaffrey got there too. They're better with McCaffrey because he's a better player, and he's a spectacular player, but he's spectacular at another level because of the team around him. Saints got to build a team around Kamara, but I do think he can be better in an offense that uses the whole field, because he's a guy that is unreal at the end, and he is as good as there is as a running back in the passing game.
Yeah, I would agree. Doug Mouton is our guest. I'm Eric Asher. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll take a break. We'll hear from our underwriters. When we come back, we'll jump on the Pelicans. Then we'll talk about the college game. All that coming up next. Stay tuned.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Doug Mouton, Sports Director, Channel 4 Sports, WLAE-TV here in New Orleans, is our guest. What a great segment that first one was, wasn't it? Let's talk some Pels here. 39-26, fifth in the West. They had won 3 straight on the road against teams they should have beaten: Toronto, Philly, and Atlanta. They won a 4-game winning streak, but last night Cleveland just outshot them with a better team. They looked a little bit flat, not the first quarter. They looked flat from the second quarter on.
They did.
But you cannot match a team that is knocking down the threes like they were when you're knocking down twos.
Okay, it's an 82-game season. There are going to be 5 games a year where that happens to all 30 NBA teams. Pelicans shot 22 threes. They hit 18% of those threes. All right, they're a lot better shooting team than that. Cleveland threw up 45 threes. They hit 44%. They are not that good of a shooting team. Sometimes nights like that happen. What was encouraging, Zion Williamson still did his work. 33, all on the inside, still did all the dirty work. If those threes, instead of being here and here, had been here, it would have been a ball game. Cleveland could have outshot them. You're not going to lose behind the line by 48 points and win an NBA game.
You can't. Not today.
Not today. And look, that's one of those games. This is not a sign of anything bad. No. This is just in an 82-game season, just by simple mathematics. You know, in percentage of shooting, this is going to happen once every 38 games, whatever the math is, and that was the night.
let's talk about what's coming up. This is a big one on Friday
It's
night.
huge.
Okay, against the Clippers.
It's huge.
I mean, this is about, you're talking about a team you're jockeying with now for, again, home court advantage.
Correct.
I mean, and I'll talk about it on the radio show this week. It's the difference between maybe playing a seventh game in Los Angeles as opposed to New Orleans.
Yep.
This is a huge, plus you got to prove you can beat this team consistently.
All of the above.
Talk about it.
All of the above. Look, I think this is the biggest game of the year for the Pelicans,
Me
without
too.
question. Friday night.
I agree.
Right now, the Clippers are in fourth. The Pelicans are in a catchable position for
Right.
them. Kawhi Leonard, we think, is still out. Don't know yet. It's a huge game. The Clippers blew them out the last time they played,
Yes.
and it wasn't close.
Not even-
and it was men on
Yes.
boys, it looked like.
It really looked-
The Pelicans went through a stretch where, against several, Denver did it to them, good teams, they got beaten badly.
Right.
So you got to turn that around. You got all signs until last night were pointing in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Friday night's a huge game. And we're going to know a lot more about this team after Friday night. And I'll say this too. Okay, this is a little bit of an exaggeration, but almost anything that happens now, this has been a really positive year.
There's no doubt.
Well, they could still, let's just say they lose the last 17.
Oh, well, yeah.
Right. I mean, something crazy could happen, and I would change my mind about that. But the fact that you are now out of the play-in conversation,
Yes.
into the top 6 conversation, and maybe not top 4, but maybe top 4. And I know you want to talk Pelicans. I'm just giving you my big picture.
No, please.
Here's the one thing about this team. This team, as it is right now, which let's say they finish 5th or 6th in the West, they have a chance to get better, like to be significantly better by doing nothing to the roster.
I would agree.
Zion Williamson is getting better. Zion Williamson has an upside that is, he's not there yet, but we're seeing some
We're seeing
pieces
what
of
in
it.
shape Zion looks like.
We're starting to see it.
Yeah.
We're starting to see what he can do. Zion has another level where you might have one of the best 5 players in the NBA on your roster right now. He's not there yet. He's one of the best 20 or 25 players in the NBA right now. But he's got another level that is going to take your team up without doing anything to your roster. That's the most positive thing. You've got that, and then at some point, maybe if you do add to your roster, like the future looks infinitely better, I think, for this team right this minute than it did right this minute a year ago when it was struggling and nobody could stay healthy and all of that
Well,
stuff.
that's the biggest difference in this team. They've been healthy this year.
The availability.
Right.
Yes. The best ability is
Right.
availability, and Ingram and Zion have been on the court. And I'll tell you what I think has happened with Zion this year. He started the year, he is trying to become, the way I see it, they hadn't said this, but the way I see it, he's trying to become a better teammate. He's trying to become a more, like a part of the offense and not the focal point of the offense. Trying to be a team player. And what it has seemed to look like to me, for the first half of this season, he was probably too passive in an effort to be a better teammate, right? And we're starting to, but that's not who he needs to be eventually. Now, I do think to get to who he needs to be eventually, he had to take this step backwards to take 2 steps forward. I don't know if that makes sense. It does to me. Like, I think he needed to learn this, and he has been, and that now he's going to learn when to be the teammate and when to be the, okay, I'm the elite guy who needs the ball now. And finding that balance, where before in Stan Van Gundy's offense it was, here's the ball, Zion, you're the elite guy, and he wasn't much of a team player, and he's so good that the offense worked through that. This year he's trying to be the team player, maybe a little too much early on, and that now we're starting to see him almost get a little more selfish, which he needs to do. And I, like I said, I still think the best Zion is 2 years away, and he's still going to be working towards it. I love what I've seen out of him this year. I love the step back to go forward. I love what he did last night in a horrible game for the Pelicans. I mean, he is crazy unique in what he can do. And he's not the tallest guy, and every rebound he wants, he gets.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest difference to me is, again, on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Again, he's in shape. The off-the-ball defense.
Yes.
You're seeing on steals. You're seeing on block shots.
Not all the time.
No.
But enough where, like,
he makes a difference.
Yes.
Right.
But it's also, like I said, I think you're seeing peaks of the guy that he can be. And he can play defense.
Yes.
We've seen it a bunch this year.
We saw it at Duke.
Yes. Yes.
We saw it do. We just haven't seen it on the professional level consistently.
Well, of course, he's guarding guys who are a lot more talented, too.
But I always thought off-the-ball defense would be where he would excel.
Yeah. He doesn't need to excel at that. He needs to be passable.
Right.
He needs to be pretty good.
Right.
And we've seen that. He's not quite there yet, but I think he has gotten better on all of the margins, right?
Right.
And I think at some point it's all going to push forward.
Outside shooting, he's got to develop that mid-range.
In theory, yeah.
We'll see how that goes. All right, let's talk point Zion, and really a point forward position is what they're playing.
Yeah.
And how that works in the playoffs.
Yeah.
When things tighten up. And
it does tighten up.
That's the biggest question.
No, and that's a great
because
question.
turnovers kill this team.
And that's a great question. But what I love is that even when teams try to stop him, he is so uniquely talented that he can beat what other players can't beat. Look, I can't wait to see them in the playoffs. And you're right, that is the big question when things box down on him. He's going to have to trust guys. Trey Murphy's going to become a much bigger player. Brandon Ingram's mid-range has become a much bigger player. I'm not saying this team is going to win an NBA championship right now, but I love this team that's going to enter the playoffs. I love a 4-5 series with the Clippers. I'd love to see that. I'd like to see it a lot more if they were the home team.
Well, this could be again for the franchise, for this team. If you get into a playoff series and you go 7 games with the Clippers, win or lose, this is a huge next step for this team.
A huge next step. Yes. I think a series with the Clippers will do this team a lot of good.
I really do.
And I said this about Zion, and Zion to me, as he goes, this team goes.
Yes.
This team is not who it's going to be yet. This team is not the NBA championship team yet. No. But I'm looking at it thinking we might be seeing it in motion and getting to the playoffs. And if somehow they could get past the Clippers, and then I still think Denver's going to be the #1 seed in the West, get to Denver. I don't think they can play with Denver in a 7-game series, but I'd sure love to see it.
Right. And things are going to get. There's a possibly Minnesota could tumble here.
They could. They are the one team. Now, we're getting to the point where there's not that many games left. But, yeah, the Timberwolves are sort of the team everybody.
And then if you're looking in the playoffs, is Cat going to be back? Can he help them? That'll be interesting to see down the line here. But, I'm bullish on the Pels as well. All right, let's talk women's basketball first. I want to talk about LSU, 28-5, 13-3. Second in the SEC. They lose 79-72 to South Carolina in the SEC championship game. They are projected a #2 seed in the NCAA tournament. Let's go back to South Carolina, to LSU, the end of the game, what has happened, what has transpired, and then everything that's happened after that, all the conversation around Kim Mulkey, what was been said. Give me your take on that.
Well, look, I still think it comes down to what happens on the court, and I think the team's going to be fine.
Me too.
I think Kim Mulkey has that team. I think that team believes in her. I think all the other stuff on the outside is noise. I still and look, this may sound goofy. Sometimes all the noise can galvanize a team, and that's not a bad thing. You see, this team has played so much better in each month as the season has gone along.
Point.
They're playing their best basketball right now. Look, the stuff in South Carolina was terrible, and you hate to see it happen. I don't think LSU did anything wrong in that. Flau'jae Johnson throws the weakest little forearm because the girl screamed in her face. And to me, the funniest moment of all of it was, you watch it in slow motion. Okay, girl screams in Flau'jae's face, right? And Flau'jae, as anybody, somebody screaming in your face, like throws up her forearm and sort of hits the girl a bit with a forearm, right? And so Flau'jae doesn't get pushed down for about 3 seconds after that. In that 3 seconds, if you watch South Carolina coach Dawn Staley, she starts holding her arms up to call for a flagrant foul. How dare Flau'jae Johnson throw this mildest of elbows or forearms? And so her arms are going up and go up to call for a flagrant in that 3 seconds. And then Camila Cardoso pushes her down and she drops her arms and sort of backs up like, oh my God. So, like, to me, that was the funniest thing, that she went from, oh my God, how dare the LSU in like a 3 second span. Yeah, look, it was terrible. I'll say this too. Looking at the tournament, to me, the seeding is everything, right? The NCAA, and especially with women's brackets, they're very smart. They're not going to put LSU and South Carolina in the same bracket. They don't do that in the men's either. Right. You're not going to put a 1 and 2 from the same conference in the same bracket. So you're not in South Carolina's bracket. So I think South Carolina goes to one of the East regionals, which is in Albany, New York. And I don't think because I think they're thinking about TV ratings and money they can make.
Yes.
I don't think they put LSU in Iowa's bracket either.
Right.
I think they send Iowa to the East Regional too. I think they put LSU in one of the West Coast brackets, which would, I think Stanford's probably a 1, and Southern Cal maybe, whoever the other 1 is.
Right.
I think they're going to be in a different bracket, and that's what I'm hoping.
Yes.
I'm hoping LSU is not in a bracket. They can't be in a bracket with South Carolina. I'm hoping they're not in the bracket with Iowa, and I don't think they will be, because that's too good for the Final Four. And I'm hoping they're on total opposite sides where they wouldn't see South Carolina again until a potential national championship.
Yes.
I think LSU is good enough to get to the national championship game. I didn't know and maybe didn't believe they were good enough to beat South Carolina last year. They got lucky enough to not have to play them. I don't know if they're good enough to beat South Carolina this year. I'd love to see it again, but I would love to see that game in a national championship game. It would be the highest rated game in the history of women's basketball, and it wouldn't even be close. Now, honestly, Caitlin Clark gets into a final. Iowa gets into a final with either South Carolina or LSU. That would also be the highest rated.
Agreed.
Or any combination of those 3 teams. But I would love LSU away from Iowa. That's what I'm hoping. And I think I'm going to get that. And then I would love them in a potential national, like I don't want them to get South Carolina in the semis. That's what I'm saying. I want them to get South Carolina in the finals if they can get that far. And I do think LSU is good enough. They're not deep. That's the problem.
Do they have enough depth?
Yeah, that's the problem. You get any kind of foul trouble. Angel Reese gets in foul trouble. I mean,
injuries.
You're 6 men. You go 6 deep right now. It's hard to win that way, but they've done it all year. So we'll see. That is the Achilles heel on the LSU team. But I love the way they're playing. I try my best, Eric, just personally, not to listen to all the noise. I didn't get into sports because I like the noise. I got into sports because I like the ball games. And so I can't wait to see.
But we're in an era of noise.
We're in an Yes,
we are.
Yes. That's beautifully said. We're in the era of noise.
We are.
And I try to avoid the noise as much as I can. I don't care about sometimes I have to pretend like I care about the noise, but the fact is I really don't care about the noise. I care about the ball games.
Sure, of course.
I care a lot about the ball games. I try to ignore the noise. To me, it's a lot of noise, but I'd love to see LSU, Iowa, LSU, South Carolina.
That would be.
But I don't want to see it till the Final Four.
Final Four, I agree. All right, McNeese is going to the big dance. Can they advance? Can they win a couple games in this?
They could get a 12 seed. A lot of 12 seeds win.
Right.
McNeese is shockingly good. And I'll say this about Will Wade, and I thought LSU did the right thing. He had to go. What he did at LSU, and I know a lot of it's legal now, but more than anything, it was just colossally stupid. Right. He's the one coach caught on wiretaps multiple times. So I understand LSU having to do what they had to do. But there was so much about his coaching style that I liked. That's what made me mad about it. The whole thing was that you had to get rid of him at LSU, but there was so much of what he did. Like, I loved, like, he is a crazy user of analytics. And, I mean, it kind of started with baseball, and now you're seeing it in all sports. Like for instance, if you're a jump shooter, he will find the single spot that you have the best percentage from. And my defense is geared around, we're going to let you shoot from any spot on the court except that one. Like just simple things like that. Like whatever your most comfortable spot is, you're not going there. My guy's standing on your spot. You know what I mean? Those kind of things. He built stuff so much around analytics and used it so smartly. And you see what that McNeese team isn't just good. They have dominated the Southland. How good they are when they step up in the tournament, we'll see. But they're going to be a sneaky, watch out for these guys kind of team because they got some talent too. Not a ton, but they got talent.
By the way, UNO finished 10-23, 4-14. They were the 8th seed. They ended up losing to they beat Southeast and they ended up losing to Lamar in the tournament. Tulane 14-16, 5-13, four-way tie for the last in the AAC. Not what was expected out of Tulane. LSU 17-14, 99 in the SEC. They are the 8th seed taking on Mississippi State. That's noon today. That game. Your thoughts
on the game or on the?
No, just on them.
Yeah.
Do you think is it NIT for them?
Oh yeah. You got a winning record at LSU.
They got the automatic bid.
Yeah.
Oh, no question. Or they're in the NIT.
Oh, no question. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. The NIT is trying to make money.
Right.
They're going to take you have to be over 500 to get into the turn. You can't have a losing record, and so LSU will fit that requirement. Oh my God, they'll be 32 teams. They'll be one of the first invitations set out. They'll absolutely continue. You think that's a successful season? Do you like what?
I do.
Okay.
You know why? Well, let me say this: why? Because they won 2 games last year.
No, I get it.
You know,
I get it.
And look, you look at where they were.
No, I get it. But you can turn around a basketball program quick, and they haven't done it yet.
Next year, I think, is a defining year.
No, okay, I'll buy that.
I really do.
I'll buy that.
I think that, again, you have to take baby steps with this thing. And what they've done from last year to this year.
All right, I'll buy that.
Now, again, but next year, you have to be. You have to.
Matt McMahon hasn't.
Well, you got a lot of pressure on you right now, especially with the women's program doing.
And the baseball program, and the football program,
and the gymnastics program, and the softball program. You want to keep going?
Yes. He hasn't impressed me a lot yet. I wonder. It's an easy thing to wonder if his success at Murray State is predicated on Ja Morant and the talent Ja Morant was able to bring with him. And look. Long time ago, and I might have told you this story on this show already before, Flip Saunders, one of the great coaches in the NBA, was in Rapid City, my first job in South Dakota. Flip and I drank a lot of beers together. And one time we were watching a basketball, we were at the Alex Johnson Hotel drinking a beer, and there was a basketball game on TV. Vanderbilt was on TV, and I was telling Flip what a great job I had thought he had done in the CBA. It was a minor league. And I remember Flip telling me, he's saying, Doug, see that Vanderbilt team? Let me tell you one thing about coaching. I will coach Vanderbilt, and you give me the greatest coaching minds, give me Red Auerbach and Larry Brown, whoever you think the greatest coaches in America are. This is like late 80s. And he said, and then I'll give you the Boston Celtics, and you know what? In a 7-game series, you beat me 4-0. He said, that's the first rule of coaching. You know what I mean? And I've always remembered that from Flip, and Flip was a brilliant coach. And coaching can matter if the talent is even or if the talent's this much, but what I'm saying about Matt McMahon, I think maybe at Murray State his talent was here and here, and we never really saw him coach. We saw him win because his talent was so much better. Now, maybe he'll prove me wrong next year at LSU. And you're right, they have shown enough improvement where giving him year 3, it would be stupid to fire him at this point. Although I'm looking at him and thinking we're going to be having this conversation again next year, and maybe I'm wrong.
And look, if they are,
and I'd love to be wrong.
If they are, then you have to start to look at moving on. But again, I think when you look at a program where everybody bolts after Will Wade is fired, and you got to start from scratch.
You got to start from scratch.
You got to give a guy at least 3 years.
Okay, fair enough.
At least 3 years. At least.
Fair enough. And I'm usually the one arguing your point. So,
at least 3 years.
No, fair enough.
Let's talk baseball. First of all, LSU 16-2. Huge win this weekend against Mississippi State. Talk about it.
Yeah, well, look, you watch this LSU team, and the more I watch them, the more I'm liking them. And what I like about this team is the pitching. They got another shutout. I know it's North Dakota State,
but still,
the kid from
Anderson.
Yeah, Cade Anderson from St. Paul's looks great. He missed all of last year, and he probably would have been a draft pick. I hate to say it, the injury probably helped LSU because now he's at LSU. I love Gage Jump is another one, kind of jumping off the page. I love the pitching on that LSU team, which may carry him, and certainly you've got a few sticks, Tommy White and company.
Of course.
I don't know. Let's see him in SEC play. But I love where they sit right now. Look, last year's team was a uniquely spectacular team, and a team for the ages. They've won national championships with teams not as good as that one. I don't think this team is as good as that one, and we may never see another team as good as that one. But can this team compete for a College World Series spot before SEC play? I think so. But I mean, let's see. Let's get them in the SEC.
Tulane's got a big one this weekend. They're 10-7. Pepperdine coming in at Tulane. So your thoughts?
Yeah, Tulane's done some things. They've been a little better than I thought they would be to this point. Obviously got to win in conference. They were not good last year. Turned it on in the tournament.
They did.
Started well. They did play the one top 25 team in Irvine and got swept. I would say we'll see. I love the big closer. I do love that. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but the 6'8" closer I'm loving. We'll see. We'll see.
How about UNO? They're 10-20. I'm sorry. The UNO is 8-8. They lost Mississippi State last night in 11 innings, 2-1
at the beautiful stadium in Biloxi.
Yeah, and Shucker Stadium, right? That's the Shuckers place.
Yeah.
And of course they got 3 against Memphis this weekend.
Well, and when they'll start conference play, I like UNO's team. I like Southeastern's team too. Southeastern beat UNO, and Nichols is I think 16-3 right now, 17-3.
Southland's always good in baseball.
Yeah, so you get those 3 in the Southland Conference. I want to see how they all play out. I think all 3 of those teams are pretty good right now. Nichols did some smart scheduling to give them themselves some momentum. I love where they are right now. Let's see those three teams when we get to Southland. Look, it's hard to say in baseball because you gotta play the even talent to really get an evaluation. So let's see when they get there.
I'm going to throw this out there. Nola Gold is 2-0. They beat Anaheim RC last week, 34-19. Taking on the champs this week at New England, taking on the Free Jacks. They haven't done much in New Orleans, but they've started off pretty well this year.
Yeah, and they need that because they could get some momentum.
Right.
I would love to see bigger crowds out there. It'd be fun. Yeah, look, it's fun having the sport here. Yeah, they played well the first 2 weeks.
They have.
Yes.
Again, it's been hard to talk about the goal because, again, they have not been successful.
Oh, yeah, when you're 3-8, nobody wants to talk about it.
But it looks like they put an emphasis on their roster this year.
They did.
And we may see a team that may compete.
Yeah, that would be, we'll find out a lot this weekend.
I got to ask you, Tulane started their spring football this week. Your thoughts?
I love John Summerall. I love what he's doing. Look, I was Willie Fritz's biggest fan from the beginning. I think John Summerall was a great hire. I'm super curious what he can do here. He's had success everywhere. What he did at Troy is incredibly impressive. I'm kind of bullish on Tulane football. I mean, I like them to compete for the conference.
Me too.
I mean, we'll see. It's a brand new coach. We're saying that with a coach who hadn't coached
He's telling us to pump the brakes a bit here, and
I don't blame him.
Okay, but again,
but you want people excited.
But the expectations are there. Look, he's the one that came in and said we're going to the playoffs.
Right.
You know, so again,
and it's not crazy.
No, it's not. Not the way things are set up now.
Not the way things are set up now.
I would agree. What about
2 years ago? The Tulane would have been in the playoffs
they would have been.
in this system.
That's right. What about LSU? What about they've taken they're at spring right now. They took up a week off. What do you think about them? What do you think about the coaching staff changes? What do you think about this team?
I like everything so far. Look, I'm curious to see what Nussmeier can do. The offense, obviously, the defense has to get much better. Much better.
Yeah.
The offense is not going to be one of the greatest offenses we've ever seen.
Nussmeier, a different type of offense.
Yeah, he's not going to be Jaden Daniels.
But you've got some pretty good running backs that maybe can offset the loss of
and look, LSU has continued to find wide receivers. Louisiana produces wide receivers like nobody else.
Right.
You know, talk to Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson about Louisiana wide receivers. Trey Palmer had to leave, and it wasn't being a third-round pick and playing great for Tampa. So I like LSU to be better, but we got to see changes on. We got to see how the changes on defense play out. And look,
do you like the additions on the?
Yes, everything I see looks positive so far.
I like Corey Raymond coming back.
I love Corey Raymond coming back.
I really think he's going to help there, not just schematically in terms of with the corners, but also look, you got two of the best recruiters on.
Best.
Okay.
Best. And look, when it comes to DBs, you only need to recruit Louisiana. Maybe poke into Mississippi or Texas, but barely. You can build a secondary. You can build skill players on Louisiana, and Corey Raymond's as good as it gets.
Well, I mean, Nick Saban's not there anymore, so you feel like there's a little bit of an opening, right? But then you look over your shoulder and you got Texas and Oklahoma coming into the SEC.
It is. I mean, it's going to be the Wild Wild West.
Right.
We'll see. But yeah, Alabama clearly is coming back to earth a little bit.
Right.
Well, we'll see.
Right.
And especially if they have any kind of rough start, that Alabama could really come back to earth quick.
Is the SEC wide open?
Well, not wide open.
Okay.
Because the bottom 5 or 6 don't really have a chance. But it's open for
the upper echelon.
5 or 6 teams. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. It's open. 5 or 6 different teams, including LSU, could be in the hunt.
How much of an impact do you think Texas and Oklahoma will have this year?
Well, they will. Look, it's going to be one more really difficult game, or 2 more really difficult games for some teams. So it's going to be harder to be elite, which for the SEC going to the bigger playoff is a good thing right now, because you're going to you might have fewer teams with 0 or 1 loss, but better teams because of the quality of competition getting there. So I think it's good for the SEC to go bigger. I mean, you might have 2 or 3 lost teams getting into the playoff because the playoff's bigger, and the SEC is going to command some serious attention.
No,
I mean, you're talking about a conference that will be clearly second to none.
Got about 20 seconds left. Do you see a break-off with the Big Ten and the SEC eventually?
I don't know. I mean, I hope not. I like everybody involved.
Me too.
I mean, I hope not.
Right.
But I mean, who knows? It's gone weird the last few years.
It really has.
Anybody predicting it, predict weird.
Yeah, if you can predict.
Money's on weird.
You might want to head over to Caesars.
Right.
If you can do that. Doug, thanks. It's always great to have you on the program. I'll tell you, I get so much feedback again about your enthusiasm, how much they love you on the show.
Yeah, nobody tells me that. They tell you that.
Yeah, They're telling me, and I'm just passing it along.
All right.
Thanks
anyway,
again for
yeah,
joining.
thank you. It's
Appreciate
fun to
it.
do.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's so many ways to catch our program now. There's a QR code on your screen that will take you to my website, ericasher.com, the WLAE-TV YouTube channel. Again, you just click on it, take you right there. Remember, set your DVR. We have so many ways to catch the program. Pelican Sports Television, our YouTube channel, and of course, here on WLAE. You'll never miss the program. You catch me on, again, the all-new Ticket 106.1. I'm on 4 to 6 weekdays. You can listen live at ericasher.com. Also, the iHeartRadio, the Ticket 1061.com. Anchor, Spotify is where you can find our podcast. We're on all podcasting platforms. Just search Inside New Orleans Show with Eric Asher. And of course, we want to thank our underwriters who make this show possible. Each and one of those underwriters, please support our underwriters. Also, thanks to the folks here at WLAE-TV who produce our program. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Logan Graffia, Jane Wright, Danielle Wick, also Alex Chacon, and the best director on the planet, William Hill. For Doug Mouton, I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.